That's awesome.
But I did actually set up each individual Tesla to have an option to charge on solar only.
Okay.
Meaning if we have an access of electricity generated by the solar panels that that house does not need anymore, the batteries are full, rather than push into the grid, we can actually push it into the battery of the vehicles.
Hello everyone, welcome back to Electrified Outdoors. This week we're going to have a really cool video where we're going to talk to Robert. And Robert has a solar setup. He has 2 Tesla Powerwalls. He's got the gateway. He has it tied in with his EV charging, and he's also going to talk about his geothermal as well. So this will be really educational for anyone who's considering solar battery storage or geothermal. So without further ado, let's get started. All right, everyone, so I'm here with Robert, and he's going to show us his setup here at his house. He's got solar, he's got some EV charging going on. And so Robert, what do we have here?
So we have here ecosystem, right? Because that's what we have to focus. So may I mention why I did this at the first?
Absolutely,
beginning?
yeah.
So what drives me to do all of this is actually the energy independence. So it happens to be eco-friendly energy, solar panels specifically, right? So I have a Tesla solar panels, 9,000 watt system, paired with 2 Powerwalls for the home battery backup system. And also I have EV charging. I have 2 level 2 EV charging stations. And our household right now currently is 100% EV. So we have 2 EVs, Model 3 and Model Y.
That's awesome.
And then on the top of it, actually we retrofit our house with a geothermal for heating and cooling.
Oh, that's awesome.
And
those are super efficient. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. It's amazing how efficient the geothermal is. It's like if you look at the financial numbers or the energy usage, it's like you have to take a second guess, like take a second look. It's like because it's so low.
Right.
And we do not make any sacrifices when it comes to cooling or heating the house. Yeah. So that's pretty much the ecosystem we created. And this all happened in the last 5 years, in 2019. 2019, yes.
2019, okay. And so, like with your Tesla wall connectors, so I noticed you have 2 of those, and those are those set up to charge individually on individual circuits, or are those set up to charge with power sharing?
Good question. Yeah, so they are individually because we have enough capacity just to plug it in 2 vehicles, and they can max out at 48 amp each.
That's awesome.
But I did actually set up each individual Tesla to have an option to charge on solar only.
Okay.
Meaning if we have an access of electricity generated by the solar panels that that house does not need anymore, the batteries are full, rather than push into the grid, we can actually push it into the battery of the vehicles. So mix of the afternoon sun, our house is pretty much, you will not see us on the grid at all. Meaning we do not pull or push any electricity, which is awesome. Which is a great thing.
Now, how does that work with pushing it to the EV? Is that done by software? Is that through the Tesla software that's done?
Yes, it is. Actually, all through Tesla software. Right now, I mean, Tesla has the pretty much top-notch also with software integration with all the different parts. So you register a vehicle to the battery backup gateway.
Okay.
And then because the battery backup gateway understands that, okay, how's the electricity flowing? Do I have access of a production for the solar panels? And if I have access rather than putting in the grid, it's going to push it in the car. Okay. And you can set your car up to 48 amps, but the gateway will actually tell the Tesla how many amps can actually pull. So it doesn't overdraw. Right. So the gateway will try to be neutral at 0 grid exchange of electricity.
Okay.
It's pretty nice.
So basically how you have it configured is you're prioritizing keeping the energy within your household here rather than sending it back to the grid.
Correct, yes.
And I suppose that like at your choosing, you could probably choose to send it back to the grid if that was advantageous to you.
Yes.
So like if you were, my thought process there is like if you were in some place like California where you were incentivized to maybe send it back to the grid during the day and then maybe pull it back from the grid at night when the energy prices are lower, if you were on like a time of use.
Absolutely. So yeah, makes a lot of sense. California here, I'm with Potomac Edison,
Yes.
and our meter is pretty much, our rate is always the same
Right.
to 24 hours. So we have no financial incentive to push the electricity to the grid.
Yeah.
Although I must admit, I am not really 100% charging my vehicles with solar only because the shading, the clouds. So sometimes you might be not really charging your vehicle to full during the day,
Yeah.
right? So that was more like see what the capabilities are out there. And sometimes I have a sunny week. It's like, okay, just do this. But overall, by default, I always push the excess electricity to the grid. So in a way, my neighbors are green as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. I know one thing we do is at our house is we do community solar. So we're hooked up to a solar farm. Okay, so neighborhood sun. we're with Common Energy.
Okay.
So it's kind of the same concept. And the wonderful thing about that is we don't have the upfront cost of the solar panels. Some people don't want it for aesthetic reasons, or they don't want to have, or they don't have financially, they don't have the ability to do that. But the nice thing about that is you're supporting a local solar farm in your area. It is green renewable energy, so that's good. And yeah, you can be solar, so and not have to worry about the pollution and stuff that comes along with
Correct.
Pulling energy from the grid.
Yes.
But this is really nice. So what else do we have going on here, Robert? This looks really...
If we can just take a step back,
Sure.
where you mentioned about the financial incentives of pushing the electricity to the grid.
Yeah.
State of Maryland recently, I mean, I don't know exactly the name of the law. Actually, they passed a law that the residents of Maryland actually can sell the excess electricity from the battery storage, as well as the vehicles. So there's a vehicle to the grid. Again, this is not going to happen anytime soon, maybe 2025. But this is a possibility that maybe, even though I am on the fixed rate, maybe next year there will be a huge grid demand on electricity.
Right.
That I'll be able to sign up with Potomac Edison, and Potomac Edison would have actually the capability and right to pull electricity from my power walls
Yes.
to sustain the grid. So again, it's
that's awesome.
Yeah, everything's in the future. It looks really good. So these are just side benefits of having us.
Yes.
Yeah. Going back to your question, what else we have here?
Yeah.
So obviously, I have a little bit of the pictures of Tesla. There's a little bit of projects I'm working on. That's actually for my new venture. Actually, I have a business to provide level 2 charging for apartment buildings, hotels, and small municipalities. This is all fresh. Back last month happened. I would draw your attention to this box right here. This is just for the display, but this is the Tesla Gateway.
Okay.
I mean, if I open it up, it's really boring inside. There's nothing going on here. But that's what it is.
This is the brains of the operation.
Yes, it is. Yeah. So the gateway is almost like a police officer that tells electricity how you're supposed to go. So the gateway says, "Hey, solar panels, we are getting all the electricity. We're gonna prioritize it, send it to the house, right? So to the car, to the batteries, or maybe to the grid.
Okay.
And whenever there is also a blackout, right?
Right.
Or brownouts, let's say we don't have electricity for maybe half a second. This kicks in at things like 1/10 of a second or so, pretty quick. You probably would not even notice it because you blink.
It's milliseconds. It's not. It's enough so that your clocks don't all need to be reset.
Correct. Yes, you would not even know. So again, so that's where the brain comes in. Says, hey, there's some brownout or blackout on the outside of the grid. It's gonna shut off a connection to the grid and start pulling electricity. If it's at night, it's gonna start pushing electricity from the batteries. If it's during the day, it's gonna start pulling the electricity from the solar panels. So
that's awesome.
That's that gateway.
And then isn't it true that the Tesla software has the ability, so like if there's supposed to be a severe storm or something, it'll actually charge the power walls a little bit more in preparation for this event?
Yes, because again, back to the software, as a homeowner, you have capability to discharge the electricity whenever the sun sets. And you can specify how many percentage of the battery you can do it for your house. Right now, I have it specifically set to 100%, so I don't really pour anything. But to your point, let's say if I said, hey, you can actually drain the battery up to 20% at night. And so I'm low at 50%. and next thing you know, the weather condition comes in, saying, hey, there's a thunderstorm coming down.
Right.
Tesla picked this up and overrides it, saying, hey, Robert, you know what, I know you want to drain it, but the storm is coming, so I'm gonna actually pull electricity either from the solar panels or from the grid.
That's smart.
Yeah, build it up so at least when there's a blackout, you have more electricity.
You're gonna have.
So it's all happening automatically. It's a beautiful thing. And you have also a notification yourself and say, hey, storm is coming.
Yeah,
So-
it has the app integration,
Yes.
which I think is awesome.
Yes.
It's a big benefit to going with Tesla. Like I know some of the other brands have apps and software, but I don't think anybody does the integration better than Tesla.
I would say so. I was not exposed to any other software, but one of the reason I went with Tesla, I did shop around. I got 3 different quotes for my initial setup, but I went with Tesla. That's 2019, 5 years ago. One biggest thing was actually Tesla was the only one that was providing the Powerwalls,
Right.
and the second one was like the software integration. I was
Okay.
like, it's part of back in the days, and probably true today. It's the greatest integration, and it works as well.
And Tesla's had a long time to work on this too, so that shows up in like the maturity of their software product, all the things that it can do, how it's integrated with their other products, like your Tesla EVs, the Powerwall, the solar, all that stuff, tying all that stuff in together is just it's really nice.
Correct, and also destination chargers.
Destination
On the
charging, yeah.
application, you can just pull out if you're Tesla or non-Tesla, you can pull up on the application on your cell phone, and you can see the destination chargers, like private ones. So that's very powerful. I'm noticing because it's still not the mainstream per se. Because everybody talk about the DC fast chargers, superchargers,
Right.
but not much people talk about the destination chargers.
Yes.
But it will come eventually.
Yeah.
That people would understand what that really means when it comes to destination chargers.
So you're going to show us the app, Robert?
Yes.
We're going to see. Yeah, I think
So
that's going to be
the application, you can see it shows you a nice and clean application. On the top, it shows you the current production of the solar, which is 3,000 watts. I have actually 2 connected, integrated wall connectors, which is the EV charging. So you can see a garage with two spaces. On the left, you see the power walls. 2X means there are 2 of them, and they are 100% capacity. The bottom is actually the grid. How much? Right now, I'm pushing electricity to the grid, 1.7,
Okay.
and the house is using 1.3. So pretty quick, I'll show you what was the production this day, which is all pretty awesome.
Yeah.
46 kilowatt hours. Typical house in the United States usually uses about 30 or so, on average 24 hours, right?
Yeah.
So let's go back and let's plug it in the Tesla.
Okay.
So right now I have set it up as the charge on solar. So if I plug it in, so there's the communication between the Tesla, the gateway, and gateway figure out, okay, do I have access of the electricity? And there's the application. Usually it's pretty responsive. So you can see already that we actually plug it in the car, which is the beautiful about this software. It even recognizes the color of the vehicle,
Oh, wow.
which is amazing.
That is amazing.
And now you can see
didn't know
actually it kicked in. So now Tesla is being charged at 1.9 kilowatts,
Okay.
right?
And it's charging that off the solar only.
Correct, because the solar is actually generating 3,000 watts. The house is using 1,000 watts. So the excess goes to, which is almost 2,000 watts, goes to the car. And you can notice that the grid, we just talk about 100 watts right now.
Yeah, tenth of a kilowatt. Yeah.
Yes. So if I also click on this guy right here, this is actually the grid. So it shows you today, we imported almost 14 kilowatt hours. We exported almost 18. And the net grid use is 3.8.
Yeah, so you didn't use anything from the grid today. You actually sent almost 4 kilowatt hours back out to the grid.
Yes.
That's pretty cool.
Exported, exactly. So I was net positive, meaning that talking about, that's the ecosystem. That's the energy independence. That's really what drives me. And the numbers show you, it's happening.
Yes.
And on the end of the month and also on the end of the year, your pocketbooks also reflects it.
Absolutely.
It works.
Yeah, you're getting that energy savings. And the more energy prices continue to increase, the more your savings are going to increase. I think a lot of folks get caught up on the price of the solar, and they're comparing it. They're doing their calculations based on the current price of energy, and they're trying to calculate how long it's going to take them to get payback. But what people don't realize is that energy prices are increasing, and they're increasing a lot as time goes on. So you have to figure that energy prices are going to be a lot higher 5 years from now, 10 years from now. When your solar panels have not even reached half of their usable life, you're going to get more and more savings because those energy prices from the grid are just going to keep on increasing. So I think that's something important to note for anybody who's watching and trying to do that calculation to figure out, hey, is this solar worth it?
Exactly. And if I might add to it,
sure.
When we went with the solar panels and the Powerwall, we financed it, right? So in my opinion, from my perspective, if somebody asks me when is it gonna, what is the return on the investment? In a way, I said it's right away because I did not take the money out of my pocket. Right. I financed it, meaning that I used bank's money to do it. So I was looking at the cash flow, meaning that what is my on the end of the month or on the end of the year, how much money do I have in my pocket if I did not have a system installed versus I had a system installed? Right. So even if I say, let's say if you spend $40,000 on the system, but at the end of the year, you look at the payments you have to make for the loan, plus all the additional, maybe you have to purchase additional electricity from your electricity provider. Add that up, and then considering how much you have to pay for the kilowatt hours to Potomac Edison, or maybe gas, oil, heating oil, and see what the numbers look like. And for me, eventually, for me, it was actually from the very beginning was at the top. So that's another point. And also when you finance it, when you finance your installation, your system, your monthly payments are set for the time of the loan. So imagine you just froze your energy expense for the next 10, 12 years or 20 years, depends on the loan.
Yes, you locked it in.
Exactly. Yep. But with the regular cost of electricity, gas, or the heating oil, it's unpredictable. And we definitely can say it's going to go up because of the inflation.
It's definitely going to go up with inflation. And as demand for energy continues to increase, one of the things we're seeing right now that we're seeing in the news a lot is AI. All the data centers with the AI and all that stuff. How much energy that takes. So when you have all that energy demand, the supply is not increasing with the demand, then the prices are going to go up, and the distribution fees are going to go up because the utility companies are going to need to put more infrastructure in place to be able to handle this increased energy demand. And so the prices are going to definitely go up. How much, nobody knows, but you can be sure they're going to go up.
Correct. Yes. Yep. So we are not doomsday people. We just seeing few years ahead of us. Like, hey, that's what we see is going to happen. How do you position yourself is really up to you. Right. So again, going back to me, energy independence.
Yes.
Right? And
that's what I like about it. Is energy independence. If the grid goes down, if something happens, God forbid, you have your own energy. You can supply your own electricity through your solar panels, and it's renewable. So you're not using a finite resource. A lot of folks have like propane or diesel generators. If you have a prolonged power outage with a propane or diesel generator, you're then also relying on somebody to come and deliver either propane or diesel fuel so that you can keep your generator running. And another thing too is, if it's not to get into the prepper type stuff, but everybody's going to know you've got a generator running. All your neighbors are going to know. When you have solar, it's very quiet, and your neighbors really don't know that.
Nobody knows.
Yeah.
There's the only house in the neighborhood that has lights on. Why so many?
And there's no noise.
Yes. So it's a beautiful, beautiful sight when it happens. Of course, we don't want it, but
no, we don't want it to happen.
Yes.
But it's good. It's good to have that peace of mind. If it does happen, you're prepared. And in the meantime, you're using clean, renewable energy for everything that you're doing. So I think it's like kind of a win-win.
Yes. And, one point, like one of the reasons we do this interview, because quite frankly, the technology is out there today.
Right.
It's not too expensive. It's getting affordable. right?
Yes.
So just getting through the mantra saying this is a luxury item or it's unnecessary. It's just people would have to find out for themselves because, quite frankly, it depends where they live. Different state, a county, or whatever it might be. Maybe different incentives, but different installers. So find out. Don't go and just repeat the mantra of somebody tells you, oh, it's expensive, the roof's gonna leak, this and that. Just make a phone call, ask them to come in, give you a quote. At least you have an understanding of what would cost for my house, for my family.
Right. And one thing I would say, as far as trying to calculate the potential increase in energy costs in the coming years, just look back 5 years, if you have it, of what your energy costs increased in the last 5 years, and assume that it's going to at least do the same thing in the next 5 years. But like I said, with the AI, with all these things that are increasing the demand, you can be sure that it's going to definitely increase more than that. So I think, like you said, locking in the price, having the energy independence, these are all important factors. So what else do we have here, Robert?
So in the garage is pretty much it. I do have the geothermal, but that pretty much boring. But I will show you. It's one of the most. Can you see me? Yeah. One of the most expensive part of a geothermal is to bore a hole in the ground.
Right.
So you can actually put this pipe in. Right.
Okay.
So my house required one borehole 500 feet down.
Okay.
And that's enough, and that's enough of the energy transfer or heat transfer between the ground and the liquid to heat and cool my house.
That's awesome.
So
you did a loop.
It's a loop. Yeah. So it's just one. Yeah. It's a loop. It goes all the way down.
It goes all the way down and comes back up.
Yes.
Yeah, that's cool.
So that geothermal heat pump is the same technology, or almost the same heat pump, you might say. Is that one you see at outside. The only difference is you do the energy transfer between the ground versus the air.
Yeah.
And what's so important about it is this. When do you cool your house? When it's hot outside. So think about this. You need to cool your house. So you actually take the heat from your house and try to push it outside.
Right.
It's already hot outside, so you're trying to push more heat when it's outside already. So your heat pumps are actually working much harder, pushing and pushing.
Yeah.
What happens to the ground? The ground is always steady between 40 to 60 degrees. Doesn't matter what the temperature is. So same thing happens for the wintertime. If you are trying to heat your house, you're trying to absorb that heat with as little as it is. Even if it's 32 degrees outside, you still can retrieve that energy from the air, but guess what? It's not a lot. So you still have to run it on overdrive for the regular air to air. But with the geothermal, same thing.
Much more efficient because basically you're moving with air conditioning, you're taking the heat that's inside the building and you're pushing it outside of the building. And then when you're trying to heat with a heat pump, you're doing the opposite. You're trying to take heat from the air outside the building and bring it in. But the problem is that it might be 20 degrees outside.
Yes.
But like you said, down in the ground, you've got it between 40 and 60 degrees. That thing is going to work. Not only is it going to work without that outside unit, but it's going to be so much more efficient because the temperature is higher and there's more heat to extract from it.
Yes.
Yeah, it's awesome. Geothermal is the way to go.
And it's amazingly efficient. So just to give you, as an example, this house, about 2,000 square feet, with finished basement. It's very important to mention, we like to keep our house at wintertime, don't judge, at 75 degrees.
I don't judge.
24/7, really. Maybe at night we might do 2 degrees down to 73, but throughout the day, throughout the wintertime, it's 75 degrees. So I just want to give you a baseline that our expenses are low at 75, not 68 degrees in the house, 75. And if we would have to buy the electricity or pay for the electricity, it would cost us $450 a year to heat and cool our house.
And that's very reasonable.
$450, yes.
A lot of folks, especially if they're doing 75, and I'm not judging, Robert, but if they're doing 75 and they're heating with either a conventional heat pump or if they're heating with propane or oil, it's going to be that much in a month. for them to heat.
Unfortunately,
at least.
that is true. Yes.
Yeah.
Some of my neighbors, they did disclose it that, sometimes they might see an electrical bill for $500.
Yeah, that's not unheard of. Natural gas, if you have that, or propane, that can get really pricey if you do a lot of heating. So
yeah, so that's definitely would want to get that information out. And also we did mention about the solar panels. So I also mentioned to people, hey, if your house is not ideal for solar panels, but maybe your heating and cooling bills are expensive or high, look into geothermal.
yeah,
The cost of the solar panels and body backup system might be comparable to geothermal.
right.
So, and when is the time? It's always the timing is the best today.
Yeah.
Look into it if it makes sense. And also makes sense specifically when you're actually replacing your existing HVAC system already. Because if you do the conventional one, it's going to probably run you at least make it $10,000 to $15,000.
Yeah, at least.
So the question is, do you have whatever that buffer additional is? Can you afford it? And does it financially make sense to your house to do a geothermal?
Right.
For me, it made sense. And no regrets. I mean, I would do it again if I had a chance.
Yeah, and to your point, I think also, like, if you look into it, that doesn't mean you have to do it right away, but it's good to have that information already on hand. So maybe your HVAC system fails, then you're not scrambling to try to get all these estimates to try to figure out what you're going to do. You already have kind of an idea of what you want to do, whether or not it's going to be feasible. And then maybe so you say, okay, when this fails, that's when I'm going to do it. And that takes all the stress out of it, really.
And that's how we actually approach it. That's right on. Because we knew about geothermal for at least 2 years. And then we moved in this house. We bought this house to 2018. After first winter, we luckily we had heating oil.
Yeah.
It was extremely expensive 2018, 2019 winter season.
Yeah.
And at the end of the winter season, I look at the bills like, I'm not doing this again. I already knew about the geothermal. I think I got like 4 quotes. And we went with one of actually it was local in Maryland. We had the quotes from Virginia and the Marylanders, and great company. So.
And if you had home heating oil, that geothermal system will start to pay for itself pretty quick with the savings in the fuel oil.
Yes.
I mean, I had a couple relatives that had heating oil just for my mother had boiler-based heating system. So baseboard hot water was a boiler. And so that's a little more efficient than forced air. However, her bills were like, her heating oil, just her oil was a couple $1,000s every season. And we didn't change out to her whole system, but we put in smart thermostats, the Nest thermostats.
Yep.
And just by setting it down to like 68 at night, when you're in bed with your covers on and you're not needing to heat the whole house, just by turning the thermostats down, she almost cut her bill in half.
Wow.
Yeah.
I will say hundreds.
It's amazing what you can save. So even if you can't do geothermal, there are other things you can do to kind of reduce your consumption, which I think is important.
Exactly. And with today's technology, like smart thermostats, you can actually monitor it. You can see it exactly how much energy you use or how much would cost you. So you're not guessing. You're not waiting for the bill to come in, next month or next filling of the heating oil. The figure it. So that's the other things. You know exactly where your money goes.
That's a good point. I was going to talk to you about, I have a Sense home energy monitor at my place. And that's one of the things I did. Some of my viewers may have seen my other video about my wall connectors and how they power share and how I did that. And one of the things I did is I put that Sense home energy monitor in there. So I know what my peak usage is. I kind of have an idea of what in my home is using what amount of electricity. And it also tells me fairly accurately how much energy I'm using. And it gives me a projection of what I'm projected to use for that particular billing period. So that insight really helps. And I was able to say, okay, I can definitely, I probably could have done more than 60 amps, but on a 200 amp service, I was very comfortable based on the insight that I had, which is huge, that I could do 60 amps. So when both of my vehicles are plugged in and charging, they share that 60 amps. Or if just one is plugged in, it charges at that 48.
Yeah.
So there's so many things you can use to save energy. And the other thing the Sense is good for is determining what your baseline load is. So like a lot of folks in this area have radon fans, okay? And the radon fans are running all the time, right?
24/7, yeah.
So that's one of the things, cell phone chargers, your little power strips that you plug in. So finding out what that is, for us, I think it's a couple 100 watt. And then you can go around and kind of try to reduce that. So it really is, there's so much cool technology out there right now that
yes,
it's a very exciting time.
And it's data driven. So you make a decision based on the data rather than guessing and you see what's going to happen because you see exactly what's happening. And I was making fun of it. I was laughing actually, not making fun. I was laughing at it because you said you monitor the energy, and it's true because I can tell you from looking at my app when we have the laundry day. Because there's a nice big spike and it's like we know already.
Wait a minute. Do you have a regular electric dryer? Do you have a heat pump dryer?
A regular one.
Regular.
Yes.
So that's our next thing. The two next things we have. So right now our hot water heater is propane. That the builder put that in the house. When that goes, we're going to do a heat pump water heater because we're on a well. I don't want to do a tankless because on a well I still want to have that water stored. And then the other thing I'm going to do is do a heat pump dryer. Those two things are like huge energy hogs in the house. So
the drying machine is actually not talking about the Tesla. It's probably the next highest draw. And we actually have electrical water heater. Same thing. So I think when the kicks is like 4,000 watts.
Yeah.
So.
You want to take a look show everybody your solar panels?
Yeah, let's take a walk.
So you can take a look at that.
So the system is 9,135 watts.
Okay.
I have 29 panels. So back in the days, and they're probably still being called black on black, meaning that you will not see this silver grids, right? So we have 26 on the right-hand side and 3 over the garage. I am really proud of the system, what came out to be looking like, because aesthetically it's very pleasing, at least to my eye. One thing I would like to draw your attention is that, do you see any conduits, any wires?
No, I don't see any conduit running.
Yeah, so that was one of my biggest successes per se. Talking with the installer, I insisted that we do run the cables through the attic. So there's actually access points underneath the 2 panels on the big main one and the over the garage.
Okay.
Where all the wires go to the attic and all the way down to the basement where the low center is. So it's possible.
Now, what kind of panels are those? I know they have. I see they have the. They have the
skirts.
The skirts on them, so they're very aesthetically pleasing.
I do not know the names, but there are 315 watts each. So I think if you do the math, I think 315 times 29 comes to 9,135.
Yeah, that's pretty good. They're pretty efficient to have a 9 kilowatt system.
Yes.
I mean, you figure most generators that go in this area are probably somewhere in the range of like 7 kilowatt.
Yes. So so there's a little bit caveat to it. Even the size of the solar panels is 9,000 watts. The inverter itself that changes the electricity, the DC into AC, it's max at 7,500.
Okay.
Right. So what happens is, we have during the day, the sun rises, it's the maximum peak, and then sets, right? So you will really not be able to produce at the maximum all the time. There's maybe about 2 or 3 hours during the day when you actually you have a maximal production.
Yeah.
Right. And I think we showed your viewers the screenshot of today's production was 46 kilowatt hours, which is great. I probably maximum can do it's about 50 on that system. And the interesting fact, when it comes to the efficiency, the solar panels are the most efficient when it's cold. So one might think that you'll be more efficient in the summertime. But in reality, the most efficiency time will be the winter time where it's sunny. The only difference is the dates are shorter.
Yeah, the days are
Right.
shorter.
Yes. So, but that's an interesting fact that if it's too hot, let's say if we're approaching, which we have this year, over 100 degrees Fahrenheit, there's so much heat. Obviously, when heat and wire and electricity creates resistance,
Yep.
and it's less efficient.
And you get a little bit of loss there.
Yes. Again, we talk about small, minute percentages,
Small,
but
yeah.
for engineers or the driver, data-driven individuals,
Yes.
that's important, right? But
Absolutely.
overall, yes. But overall, summertime you're gonna always overproduce and produce much more than even in the wintertime, where the
Right.
conditions are ideal because of the shorter days and sun days.
But I think, that's why it's such a great idea to combine the solar with like the Powerwall, the battery storage, because not only can you tap into that when the grid goes down, but that kind of balances things out when, like what you said, where you have the peak in production at a certain time of day, but you can draw that energy out, when you need it at a steady rate. So I think it's really, I don't see why you would just do solar panels and not do like some battery storage.
Finance, of course. I need to disclose it that for me, 5 years ago, going with the battery, I looked at it as the expensive generator, right? But what actually drew me to get a battery is I learned, maybe this is not reliable knowledge to everybody, that if you have a solar system without battery backup, when there's a grid outage, blackout, even though you have a solar system, it will not work.
Yeah, it shuts off.
It shuts off right away. So,
and you lose all that production.
And you are in the same boat as your neighbors, meaning that the energy independence I was referring to, it's gone.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, it's, yes, it reduces your electrical bills, but if your grid goes down and, hey, if the grid goes down for a week, you've just lost a whole week of your solar production and
comfort of your living.
And the comfort of your living
yeah.
situation, absolutely.
Yeah. So that drove me over the edge to actually invest in the battery backup. So it's a funny story because I did only one that day originally. So the day of the installation, I was so pleased. I called Tesla, say, hey, I want a second one. But they didn't want to deal with me. They give me an outrageous price because back in the days that Powerwalls were very high demand. So I lost my opportunity to get them to the initial installation.
Well, at that point, they probably figured they could name their price.
They did. And they named the price, so I would say no.
Yeah.
So it wasn't the Tesla that says no. The price was way out by.
I refer that to, because you get electricians, all kind of contractors that do that. I refer to it as instead of saying no, they price themselves out of the market.
Yes.
They price themselves out of the market. It's a way of politely saying no without actually saying no.
Correct. Yes. So so I had this dream of having the second Powerwall, and 5 years later, the opportunity came in. I invested in the second one. I installed it, so now I have 2 Powerwalls.
Wow.
So they are capable to deliver 10,000 watts continuously.
That's awesome.
And 14,000 watts as a peak for I think it's 7 minutes, I believe. But
yeah.
So pretty much 10,000 watts, you can run anything in your household. We talk about HVAC. Obviously, you're not gonna cook the dinner, the turkey, nothing like that. But
well, what you do with that is you get one of those little inductance camp ranges, and then pull that out, and you can cook whatever you want.
You can, yes. It's 100, I don't know, maybe 200, 300 watts, and you're good to go.
Yep.
But again, if you need to run the let's say microwave,
yes,
which is not kicking 1,500
watts and something.
No problem. So little things like that. So again, back to the basics, energy independence. It's like, if something really bad happens, even if it's for 6 hours or a few days on the grid, as long as there's a sun next day, we're good to go.
And hey, if there's no sun, if the sun doesn't come up, we got much more serious problems than electricity, right?
Exactly. Yes. So then we got to go to the ground. No, I'm not a prepper, but yes. So one thing you might notice, besides the cars passing by, my AC is running, and one thing you don't hear.
I don't hear it at all
because
there's no outside condenser. Unit.
Yes.
Yep.
You might hear my neighbor's unit running, but not ours. So
That's awesome.
That's another benefit. It's just side benefit.
Now, one last question for you. With the virtual power plant, like we talked about that briefly earlier, and we were talking about, I think over Messenger, about the Powerwall 3, the Tesla's Powerwall 3, and how that chemistry, the LFP chemistry, is so important, and the ability to do that virtual power plant, that just gives folks that are going with solar, they're putting the money out for solar, they're putting the money out for the battery storage. That gives folks a way to get payback sooner because they can participate in these virtual power plant programs. And when the grid is in need of additional supply, but it'll take energy from your Powerwall or your vehicle and feed that back into the grid and give you some really good incentive for doing so.
Yes, and general public, even myself, even though I consider myself a little bit more into the electrical infrastructure, we do not comprehend how expensive the kilowatt is during the high grid demand. I want to say it's at least $1 per kilowatt hour, at least.
For commercial.
But even commercial, but we are on the same grid. It doesn't matter if it's the single family house or the manufacturer, down the street. So to your point, the virtual power plant, we do not yet know how lucrative it might be for homeowners like us. Hopefully the utilities and public service commissions would actually don't forget us as the customers, that we should have the same seat at the table as the utilities to provide this additional and critical infrastructure or capability for the infrastructure as a homeowner. So it might be lucrative. You're not gonna make money out of it, of course, because those events happen very seldom, right?
Right.
And a short period of time. So you're not gonna spend $50,000 on the Powerwalls to make $300 a year. I mean, I'm just throwing these numbers loosely, but I just want to make sure that people don't extrude this information as we tell them.
Yeah, you're not gonna pay off your purchase in a year or 2 years, but every little bit helps, right? If you can get $200 a year from that, and your money from your SRECs for what is that, for every megawatt hour you produce?
Yes.
So there's all kind of little things, and then the energy savings. All these things have to be taken into account when you think about how quick you're going to get payback on your solar and battery storage system.
Absolutely, yes. And good thing you mentioned about the renewable energy certificates. Some people call them credits. It's pretty much the same thing. So yes, when you install solar panels, typically you have option to either keep the RECs for yourself, or you can actually sell them. The installer or utility might buy them off from you.
Yeah.
It really depends, the incentive, how much money they give you, maybe a few $100s, maybe a few $1,000s, depends on the cost of the RECs. In my situation, 5 years ago, the RECs were so inexpensive, they were like $7 per REC. I decided to just keep it for myself, and I got lucky because within 6 months or so, those RECs in Maryland went from $7 to like $80.
Yeah, I saw that.
So that's additional side benefit of the installation I have, and the right decision making that I kept my RECs. Right? That make my system more financially viable per se, right? It's not gonna fit everybody that's gonna do the same thing today because conditions change. And also, not a lot of people might know that, but geothermal, HVAC, also generates a RECs.
Okay.
You have to actually actively register your system.
I didn't even know that.
Yes, so my system actually, I went with that, even though the installer says, hey, Robert, don't do it because it's not worth it. I said, you know what, even if it's $50 a year, it's worth it to me.
It's something, yeah.
Yeah, so I dipped my toe into the pool, I registered my RECs. 5 years later, at first I was looking at the RECs prices for geothermal because they are differently priced. They were low, not a big deal. And then I forgot about it until last year. I looked at the 2023 and I could not believe it. Actually, my RECs, my geothermal generate more RECs, financially speaking, because I sell them, more cash, than the geothermal used in electricity cost.
Oh, wow.
So let's not sink in. I installed a system to heat and cool my house that actually generated me a cash at the end of the year.
Not only is it heating and cooling your house more efficiently, but it's also putting money back into your
Yes.
pocket in other ways as well.
But again, this is just a unique condition at the moment, right? So I just
Right.
want to make sure that people understand it, the viewers, that
Well, these are all questions. So if they contact Tesla or if they contact another installer, these are all good questions to ask your installer, and take all these things into consideration, because it is a big investment, but you have to take everything into consideration when you're trying to determine if it's worth making that investment.
Yes.
And I think that's the important takeaway.
You're correct. And so the information is the power, pretty much.
Exactly.
And that's what we're trying to do. Just share the information with the viewers, whoever's interested, either they are in Maryland or throughout the United States, or maybe overseas, Europe, other countries.
Yeah.
I'm sure we're all on the same table. I mean, on the same
Yes.
level. Yeah.
Well, Robert, I really appreciate you taking the time to show us your system here,
My
and
pleasure.
to show us everything you've got going on with the power walls. And I think the energy independence part of it is also really, really important, because there's a lot of peace of mind. It's not just the financial, it's also the peace of mind and knowing that you're not relying on the grid. Well, you are, but you're not completely reliant on the grid. If your power goes out, you're protected. You have contingency plans.
That's correct. Yeah, thank you. And I hope that you and your viewers would appreciate it, and hopefully they use the information, and then maybe can reach out to you and they share their success stories with you.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, everyone, that's going to do it for this video. What do you think about geothermal, battery storage, solar? Do you have any questions for Robert? Let us know down in the comments section. As always, folks, remember to like. It helps others find our content on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button. And then when you do, make sure you hit the notification bell so you get notified anytime we add new content. And as always, remember to hug the people you love every chance you get. Thank you guys so much for watching.